Evening all. How are we? Long time no see. We had a little bit of a break last week, but we're very pleased to be back with you. And joining me this evening is the ever lovely Danny. How are you, Danny?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Feels weird, doesn't it? It feels like it's been ages. I don't know if it's just me, but I only missed 1 week's pod. I don't know when the last pod was. Was it 2 weeks ago? I don't know. Or was it a week and a half ago? Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess 11, 12 days, something like that. A long time in the FPL universe.
It shows you how quickly you sort of feel like. I mean, I feel like I've just never podded before. So yeah, forgive me if I have one of those usual kind of existential crisis type thing. But we'll get back into it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're back to being lowly amateurs again. We'll say hello to the chat in a moment or two. But yeah, did you have what have you been up to? Have you enjoyed the kind of a weekend of nothingness? Or are you an avid FA Cup fan? Because there's no VAR, so you probably get a bit of a hard on for that kind of thing. So
I would, and I should. I didn't really watch enough of the FA Cup. I mean, one thing is I currently have no television. I do, but the channels. Let's just say the channels are not working as they were.
Yeah.
So I've only got iPlayer and Netflix and stuff. So I don't actually have any. I can't actually watch any live football. And then I was in the pub a bit, but they didn't have any football on there. So I kind of missed it all. And yeah, time is just flying for me at the moment. So I'm not it's not like anything slowed down. I mean, just weeks are just disappearing for some reason. So yeah, I think I caught a bit of the FA Cup. I'm trying to think now, but not much. Yeah, I'll jog my memory when we go. What about you?
Just not much either. A little bit of the fabulous Burton Albion game. You know, terrific watch for any football fan. The 1-0 after extra time of Burton Albion. Christ. But actually, I was just thinking, it was the kind of weekend, right, where because it's rained for I think apparently, and it's probably even more true where you come from. It's rained every day since the start of the new year.
Yeah, February grim,
and it does kind of affect your mood. The points that I've got in FPL have also affected my mood. But a good example is because it was so wet. I actually, my wife was listening to a podcast about Chernobyl last week, and it just reminded me, I'm going to watch that again. So I just re-binged the Chernobyl miniseries, from about 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, I've never seen it. Is it good?
And I'm not
serious face
digging this up. It's the best television that I've ever seen. And I only like really good things, as you know. So
yeah, that's
it's outrageous. But then it should be said, it's right in my wheelhouse, right? Because obviously it's Soviet Russian staff and history and and government.
You don't even need the subtitles or anything, do you?
Yeah. No, actually, it was one of the few benefits, right? Is I'm reading all the signs and being like, yeah, I'm ahead of all you guys. No. So yeah, it is good. That I'm sure anyone in the chat that's seen it will support me on this one. It is outrageously good. But so yeah, well worth a watch. There's only 5 episodes as well. So, but it's one of the only examples of television where I physically couldn't switch it off. I tried once. I had to carry on.
I bet you haven't watched what I told you to watch yet, have you?
No. I will do.
People are terrible. People are terrible humans. No one I've told to watch it watches it because I
will. The amount of time I have is pretty limited these days, I'm afraid.
We should say, by the way, sorry, Rich, because we're just having a full private conversation there. That it was just that free solo documentary that loads of people would have seen, but it's on iPlayer about Alex Honnold, the guy who went up the skyscraper, and there was an award-winning documentary that he did about a free solo climb up El Capitan mountain. So some people have seen it, but it's the single most ludicrous thing I think any human being has ever done in my mind. Like you cannot fathom when you see someone on a cliff face 2,000 feet and just with no rope, no attack, and just hanging on to cracks that you can't even see. I mean, my hands are going wet just thinking about it. I mean, it's just anyway. I know, sorry. You gotta watch it anyway. So yeah.
No, I genuinely I will. But yeah, it does sound like an incredible piece of work. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that we've been up to because of the lack of good football, etc. And we're not going to do current state of points, etc. too much. I'll have a quick peek at the mini league in just a second. But there's obviously, for obvious reasons, I mean, Danny, just a quick spoiler. Did you hit the triple captain? By the way, my camera's gone bloody fuzzy again. I told you.
Yeah, I noticed that. It'll fine. It'll clear up.
Anyway, yeah. Apologies for that. You don't need to look at me. Look at Danny. There you are. That's what the camera should do.
We both got the same camera, so it just shows that my house is obviously a lot less. You know, Richie's house is full of damp and moisture, and
well, that's why we're moving, right? That's why we're moving.
Sirens going by in the window, but you'll be in a new house soon. You'll be in a new house soon as well, so you won't get as much of this, will you?
Yeah, well, but I'll move in with the promise of better quality windows. I'll get there, and then of course we know what happens from there. But yeah, no, you're probably right. But yeah, triple captain, remind us.
I am on triple captain, and I was just thinking about it earlier. I think I am slightly regretting it, but only because, and you know, it's not. I'm not really interested in. It's not my regret. Isn't ever based on the points. But I was just suddenly thinking, and we'll get talking about that. But well, we'll just talk about it straight away. But you know, one of the things that happened with triple captain, because we haven't spoken, we didn't even speak last week about FPL, probably about everything else. But we just sort of we had so little time to move, so we both just did we probably just needed to think about decisions and we have very different teams anyway and stuff. But you know, obviously Harry put out that tweet, which, you know, was very good, you know, very good tweet. And I hadn't quite realised that, like, how much needed to happen for, say, City to double again. And that it was like that they needed to get to the semi-final of the Champions League and the or something roughly like the semi-final Champions League and the semi-final of the FA Cup. And you don't really have, you know, that was like on Monday. And we had to make a decision by Tuesday. And I think it's still a fine decision in terms of, I don't think it's going to be that, it shouldn't be, fingers crossed, that kind of consequential anyway. But you know, it's one of those things where if you had more time to think about, one thing when you think about it is actually, because one of the things was, I think he put, and I didn't have time to check all these things, but I'm sure they're right, but he put stuff about like the teams that City might have to beat, for example, to get to the Champions League semi-final, and it was like Bayern and someone else and Arsenal, I think, as well. And you sort of think, God, there's a lot of tough teams. But actually, like, one thing on reflection is, I mean, really now in world football, for teams like Man City, I mean, most English teams, what's really a difficult game apart from Arsenal? You know, what's really that difficult? And I'm suddenly thinking, actually, just, you know, it's not actually, getting to the Champions League semi-final isn't quite what it was at the moment, is it, for the English teams? So maybe there is a better chance of another double, which will be a bit annoying. Because also, I think fewer people have actually triple captain Gabriel than I thought they would. Just to say that quickly, like his effective ownership is only like 200% this week. So from what I can see around my rank anyway, so you're getting 100% of it, which is a lot. But obviously, you know, I mention it to people who you would think are casuals. I mean, no one's a casual these days. I mean, so many people are. I mean, hardly anyone's much of a casual anyway. But you know, like my brother or something, you know, would say to me, "Oh, did you triple captain Gabriel? No way! Wow, I'm waiting for a double later on in the season." And I don't even think that it's that they know that what the chances of doubles are. It's just that loads of people now know that you do get doubles. So even your casual players just go, "Well, I'm not going to captain a defender because I'll get a double game week later in the season." And so now we're in an interesting situation where we might. Is less. They don't realize it's probably less likely than it ever has been for the last 4 or 5 years. But we still might. So loads of the sort of casual players were like, well, I'm not going to triple captain an Arsenal player, set piece FC for 2 away games. They're just going, what, 2 away games? So now you're thinking, oh, God, it's one of them where it might just be that too much knowledge is to your detriment. But yeah, still early days. I mean, I just have to hope. If Gabriel gets a clean sheet, then that's a pretty good result, I think, in the end.
Yes, indeed. No, yeah, same as sadly. But we'll see how it goes. What is it? It's Wednesday, isn't it? So we wouldn't have been able to do a pod thereafter that anyway. So we wouldn't have known. Well, let's move on to this because so that we can ignore the fact that my camera looks like, for whatever reason, I'm using a sort of Super 8 from the 1970s or something. I honestly have no idea. I wrapped the thing in my jumper to try and dehumidify it, but it gets misty.
When I'm speaking, just blow from far away repeatedly. Yeah.
No one needs to see that actually.
Nobody will know what you're
doing. I am tempted to switch to the old one, but we'll let it go, and I'll just have to.
No, don't switch. It's fine. It'll clear up.
Not watch this back and listen to myself instead if I need to check anything. Cool. Okay, so Game Week 27, the next phase. Before we kick off all into that, I'll say hello to a number of people in the chat. So the good sir FPL Hippie, good evening, folks. Good evening to you. We've got a few new people here. Erkan, his first time live. Well, I hope we don't disappoint. This isn't normal, the camera thing. We are usually better. But don't come back. Stuart Fletcher, he's looking forward to this. He's already probably quite disappointed, but nevertheless, stay with us, Stu. It's going to be fine. And Heather, she captained. She's making pancakes, and she captained rice, and is therefore doing better than us. So it's very exciting.
I like that. Does Heather know that he's going to get another bonus point at the end of the week? I'm sure she does, but he's due to get another point, so that'll be another 2 points for Heather.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Heather? Yeah, and also, I mean, we haven't talked about best. Oh, this is just all over the place. What is going on? I can't do this either. Please listen on audio instead for this one. Yeah, top pancake toppings can be this. No, it won't work. It will just look weird. It will look like my lips in front of the camera, and only the most perverse viewer would want to see me do that. But there we are. Yes, anyway, welcome all. The mini league update is going to be very brief. So Matthew Nuttall back to the top with defcon Dynamo. There's actually a question about defcon later on. And Zach Farnell up to second. He was I couldn't be bothered to scroll throughout all the pages this week, but he did 63 points this week so far. That's a pretty good return, isn't it? I think that's way above anything that I've done. You're actually one of the top scorers in the league this week, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, because you've got Big Verge.
Big Verge.
Ah, you can imagine
what
that was difficult to say. But yeah, Benji Lag, Yag third, Nick and Joe. So the top five are all people that have been in there for a pretty a while now. But yeah, well done, resurgence of Zach Farnell. And
Helen's asking if you're in a sauna or a steam room at the moment.
I am. I do have a penchant for that kind of thing, but I haven't done it.
The only reason why I keep bringing this up, chat, is because I just know how much it's bothering Richie's.
It is really annoying me. I'm trying not to let it affect my obvious high levels of professionalism, but yeah, I would rather black out. But also, I think we, as people who work in the education world, the idea of camera off people, that's not cool. So I'm not going to go down that line. It's not just about you, So yeah, let's carry on. Eno's on 86.
What?
Sorry, but you are on there. You would be there. I couldn't be bothered. It was midweek and all that kind of stuff. Yes, Brian. It is steamy in here. I'm going to stop there. Anything I say thereafter is not going to help me out. No teams because we can't be bothered. There's no point showing midweek scores. So we're going to get straight into questions. And we will talk about, there's an additional talking point that we might raise a little bit later on, but another fruitful list of questions. I mean, I looked at our teams very briefly earlier, Danny. I suspect I'm more eager to make some moves this week and try and change fortune. But actually, just for a reminder, did you do anything last week? I'm gonna switch it to the other one. I can't be doing this anymore.
Yeah, okay, switch it.
It's just too. I mean, it'll be rubbish, but it'll be better than this.
I'll tell you afterwards. You just need to store it in a different place. Okay. Yeah, that's better. That's fine. That's good.
Well, it's not. I'm not cool with this either. I'm better looking than this, but we'll leave it off and we'll come back to it.
Yeah. Where were we? What did you say then?
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you if you did any moves last week, because obviously, as you say, we didn't really have cause to share our plans too much. I wish I had.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't do any sort of review scores here, did we? So far this week, although Eno's killed it with 86 there. Yeah, I did. Who did I sell? Oh yeah, I sold Deveni. I mean, I did a move that most people won't like. And it remains to be seen. I'm a little bit torn on it. I was always going to do, basically, I sold Deveni to Enzo. And I could have sold Deveni to, say, Salah, for example, which I think most people would have probably done or lent towards out of those two. But I was always going to do that move, basically, because, my squad's a bit thin. Doing that allowed me to just sort of go for the upside a little bit more in terms of benching Thiago, which I got away with this week, by the way. And it's not something, it's not like I liked benching Thiago, but I quite liked the opportunity of kind of playing someone low on. For example, it was Tarkowski with what I thought was a pretty good fixture against Bournemouth that they cleaned against earlier in the year. So it was like the opportunity to bench him this week and then also bench Tarkowski next week against Man United. So it's just that it wasn't just bringing a player in with 2 good fixtures or more. It was also just having a bigger squad, somebody on the bench. Because, for example, I would have had Hall first sub and he didn't even start, so I would have had no bench. So yeah, it was kind of those 2 fixtures for Enzo. And then obviously with Enzo, I'm not sure yet. I might sell him, but I don't mind the idea of keeping him. And we'll probably talk about Enzo. Let's talk about Enzo at some point. But I just think that, rightly or wrongly, I just think that he's like, I decided sort of last week especially, and doing quite a lot of reading, that he's just like way better than people realise. But I do appreciate that. I think he's probably way better than everyone realises. Not everyone. I don't want to sound too presumptuous there, sorry, but I do think he's way better than maybe I have realised, but more so maybe as a season-long pick. So it remains to be seen. But I do think he's I do think he's sensational. And I mean, if he finished that game with like 0.82 XGI or something again, didn't he? I didn't actually see those chances that he set up somehow. I did watch quite a bit of that game, so I'm not sure what I missed. But anyway, yeah, so I just did that. So I only had, as usual, I've only had 1 transfer every week for weeks because I've had loads of injuries every week. It's just been a nightmare. So let's see. Enzo's got Burnley at home next, so.
Yeah. I mean, that's I'm kind of keeping solace with the fact that I just don't like Enzo because he's Mr. Chelsea, and I shouldn't say that. Welcome, Chelsea fans. You can come here anytime you like. It's absolutely fine. No, but no, it's a good pick and quite understandable that you jumped in at that point. And as you say, he's handy in the blank, isn't he? Everyone might have forgotten that, but he has a reasonable fixture. Then he's only he's got 1 or 2 tricky fixtures, but it's not bad if you can rotate 1 or 2 spots with your strong defense and that sort of thing. So in my
no, go on.
In my situation was a little bit different. I mean, whatever was happening, I was always going to have to play 1 dud pick last week, right? And so I kind of accepted that I had to just hang on to the midfield spots and play Harry Wilson, even though not an ideal fixture at City. But my trouble spot that I was worried about, and I was right to be worried about, so I was quite pleased about this move at the time, is quite late on, I did Michael Keane to Munoz. And obviously it felt like a terrific win on deadline because he got benched. No one really knew about it. I was like, brilliant. This can't possibly go wrong now. And of course, Munoz rocks up with, what was it, like 1.1 or 1.2 XGI and concedes 3 goals to Burnley and no returns. So I feel a bit shortchanged. And the worst part of it is it's completely disrupted my plans. So, the easy move from Gui to Thiago for exact money obviously isn't there anymore. So I'm having kittens this week with the idea of not. So I'll fix that most likely this week. But I don't know whether it's unlucky or not, but it definitely felt frustrating, that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a bit unlucky. I mean, but I mean, I'm trying to think about my own like reflections and stuff, and we should probably put our teams on screen from now on when we talk about this because it gives it a bit more context.
True, yeah, we'll put them up later.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I was thinking about myself, my own team and stuff, and like I've been moaning a bit last week. I mean, you get luck through the season, then you get bad luck, and it's fine to moan when you get some bad luck, and not moan so much when you get some good luck. But I've been moaning the last 3 or 4 weeks because it has to get really bad for me to moan much because it's just like I felt like I've had some pretty shocking luck. But then last week, for example, so you can sort of remain downbeat about that. I mean, even the week before, I had that one decision. You know how close I was with that decision with Leclerc versus Van Dijk. Wasn't I 1 button push? Do you remember on the deadline? Do you remember the week before last?
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
One. My thumb was over it like that, going and I just one of them where I didn't give myself enough time to think about it again, and it ends up a -11 for Leclerc versus Van Dijk. I mean, -11. I mean, that's just so ridiculous. But last week, as much as I feel like I've had loads of bad luck the weeks before, and I've not had particularly brilliant weeks. I've had a good week for sure. And, you just said I had 86 points. I mean, some people have had ridiculous weeks. I've just had a good week so far. I've got Van Dijk and I've got Njai. But, I have to be really you have to be really kind of appreciative of the look. Like, so much could have gone wrong for me this week. So you do put yourself in positions to get unlucky or lucky. And maybe I feel like the last few weeks I was in a position where I could have got lucky and didn't. This week I was in a very vulnerable position. I mean, so much. I mean, people had Munoz, people had Salah, people had Ekatike. I don't know. I'm trying to think now off the top of my head. Loads of players. I mean, there were others, and they all blanked. So many players blanked. So there's that, and I mean, that night, Wednesday night, I was going into it thinking this can only be a disaster for me. The only way this isn't a disaster is if Van Dijk calls and everyone else in the league doesn't, and that's basically what happened, which is ridiculous. But yeah, the weird thing about this week is, generally for most like engaged managers, as we call them, or people like us, or people like the pod, and people who really take the game seriously and stuff, the vast majority of those people have had a bad week, what seems like a really bad week. I mean, it's a bad week in context, because the way the overall rank has sort of shuffled this week is that all those engaged managers who are, whatever, serious managers, good managers, have kind of dropped a bit. And the drop has been more about the really less engaged managers, or maybe more casual managers, or maybe people who haven't played it for as long, who all own the likes of João Pedro. Sorry, Jossie, not you. Semenyo, João Pedro. Who are all the other guys who, like, do you know what I mean? That are kind of like 50-60% owned, that a lot of us don't own. So really, it has been a bad week for a lot of people, but actually it's more just been a sort of shift where we've seen a big rise for a lot of people who maybe historically, I don't know what to say, but haven't been as good. And loads of people like you have got a low score and not done so well. And then there's just a few outliers. I'm basically an outlier because I've got Van Dijk and he's about 8-9% owned, and that's it.
Yeah,
the rest, it's weird.
I agree. What I take from that is I've been tremendously unlucky. I'm a top manager, and it's just the fickle hand of fate that's decided all this. No, that's a very good point. It is one or two can make a difference. Actually, there's a question later about what kind of transfers one should be making when they are chasing, and people are starting to adopt that mentality, and perhaps we'll touch on that because there is some thoughts about differentials and that sort of thing. I don't know whether this is a great place to start, but of course Arsenal were very much on our minds, what with the game this time in 48 hours, I guess. So it's an interesting one because obviously lots of people are tripled up on Arsenal and probably have other moves that they are keen to make. And what I see is quite interesting a lot this week is, I'm seeing lots of managers in a certain circle, probably analytics, but I don't know whether it's quite exactly that, who are thinking on the lines of, obvious role this week then, because they want to do a lot of things in 28. They probably want to move Enzo on, they probably want to get on Liverpool. There are, interestingly enough, all I see them saying is I'm getting Anderson out lines. I've seen that phrase used so many times this week, Anderson out.
Have you?
That sort of thing.
Is that the
yeah, it's quite interesting. Yes,
right.
that's coming up quite a lot. So you might see people chuck him this week or next. And I suppose it's a difficult fixture this week, isn't it? Not that fixtures really matter a great deal with him, but the new manager, actually, we can come to that in a minute, might affect his position a little bit. But there are other managers in a different situation who are keen to get going this week. Obviously, nice turns for Bournemouth, Villa, I suppose, Brentford, lots of interest in perhaps even a double up there. So the question at the top there, is it dangerous to sell Arsenal assets to get on attractive swings in game week 27, 28 for Liverpool, Brentford, Bournemouth and Villa and that sort of thing? So that one is quite interesting because I'm in a situation this week, and we'll come to it later on, where because I've ballsed up my clear, lovely, juicy, exact money route to Thiago, in order to get to the nice picks that I'd probably have to ditch one of our Arsenal players this week. So it makes it quite a tricky decision. And so other people clearly have a similar one there as well.
You got one or two transfers?
Two.
Have you got two still?
Two, yeah, 2 transfers and 1.7 in the bank, yeah. So, right. And you've got one, I assume, yeah. But I think what makes it quite an interesting question is obviously I think no one is in their right mind considering selling Gabriel unless he's got an injury, which is hopefully not going to happen. And then we've got the unknown of the Haaland situation, which one would tend to think is fine. But of course, if that does go south, then everyone is moving him on, right? If he was out for more than a week or something like that. Well, you know what I mean. It seems like it would be something that people would be attracted to. So what's your feeling on this? I mean, I'm thinking more about Timber and Rice and picks like that. No one's moving on Rayan, no one's moving on Gabriel, and obviously Saka being back perhaps has some kind of moderate impact here. But what are your initial thoughts there? And this does, by the way, touch a little bit on your manager point, because obviously Spurs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing we've got to bear in mind for the whole of this pod, actually, and try and sort of correct ourselves and think about like the context and stuff. Because I'm on one free transfer, and it's a different conversation, isn't it? Basically, it's a very different conversation for lots of reasons. Because a lot of things are double moves. A lot of things that people are looking at are double moves, maybe. And if it's not a double move, is it worth it? Because I'm not sure most moves are worth it this week. I didn't realize you had 2 transfers, so that is interesting. It does change things for us. I just think for a lot of like the teams we've talked about, Brentford, I've not really looked at Bournemouth all that much. I'm looking now, so they've got West Ham away, you see. So I just think for a lot of these teams, most of these teams, it doesn't look the week this week, really. Like, there's just so much information to get from another week. I mean, this is caveated because we'll come back to you in a second. Because, for example, you don't own Thiago. And I know you really want Thiago, and Thiago is just fucking brilliant. So it's scary. It is scary.
Because even, I know you'll probably come to this, but even those Arsenal highlights was like, oh my God, like not having someone like this is just you just know in your, like, okay, we can debate someone like an Enzo, right? There are certain, but with Thiago, you think you just know universally it's a bad idea not to own him. It just every instinct is like, that's a stupid thing to do. Not own Thiago. You do just want him.
Yeah, I mean, again, season long, it's one of them that you sort of wish you'd sort of been a little bit more settled on early. I mean, which is annoying to say. I know it's so annoying to say. I remember sitting here in our Game Week 1 pod saying Thiago's going to be brilliant. This is why Brentford are going to be brilliant. This is why you trust the system with Brentford, by the way. I mean, how many times did we say that? Like, trust the system. They know what they're doing. So that's more evidence than anything else, which is why they're going to be good this season. And now they're like 5th, or they were, or something, in the league, which is absolutely ridiculous. See that stat, by the way, that I mean, again, chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it said that Brentford have they haven't sacked a manager in 11 years, or they've only recruited internally in 11 years. You know, the best run clubs are obviously Brentford, Brighton, and Bournemouth, but Brentford are just on another planet, by the way. You know, it's just worth mentioning. They're just on another planet in terms of how to run a club and like what they're doing and how they go about things. It's hilarious. It's hilarious how one team can be so much better than everybody else when there's so much money in football. I mean, what does that say about what everyone else is doing? I mean, you're getting paid millions and millions of pounds. What are you doing? So anyway, yeah, Brentford. But you know, he's one of those season-long picks. So it is a bit one of them where you're torn between like being terrified of him, but actually it's a Brentford player. It's a Brentford striker. He can easily blank, and he has just blanked quite a lot. He's got 5. He's got 2, 5, 2, 2, 2. Yeah, they were tough fixtures. And he could have had more. And I didn't see the full Arsenal highlights. I only saw bits, but I did see his chances. I'd like to see that game in full. But so it's kind of a mix between scary because you know you should have him long term, but also you've got to sort of hold yourself back a bit and try and be rational and think there's not a huge amount of the season left. Like, each move needs to be optimal here. I'm not bringing someone in because I want them for 10 weeks. Like, we're wildcarding soon, and I'm not sure that it isn't urgent. It's never urgent to own a Brentford striker, basically. But having said that, when I look at those fixtures, when I just eyeball the next 3. I just have a natural inclination towards thinking these are the sort of fixtures where you kind of expect Brentford to thrive a bit more.
Yeah.
Where they, you know what I mean, where they can play and it seems it's not just a low block. It's not. The last few weeks has either been a really tough fixture or a fixture that's so easy on paper, you know, they've not necessarily done what you expect, or it's not necessarily as easy for their system. Whereas Brighton, Burnley away, Bournemouth away, even Wolves and Leeds, all of those games up till 31 are all games where you kind of just expect Brentford to get, you know, a significant number of big chances. So I can't even remember where we started there because I've just rambled. But yeah, like Thiago, I get it.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? As you say, it is an awkward one because we'll go through it later. But actually, it's one of those horrible scenarios where over 2 transfers, it looks better than not doing it. But you do know that there's a good chance that one of the people removing is not a great decision this week necessarily, or not optimal this week, or whatever you want to call it. Eno in the chat, by the way, just confirming. I was interested to see what he was saying, but that Brentford most chances created for all teams, but I think he's clarified he means big chances. So they are a big chances team, and that makes them very appealing. I was even, we'll come to Dango in a bit, but even him was quite an interesting watch in that game because he was right up there alongside him, wasn't he? He was sort of pegging right up to the sort of central positions. But of course, you've got that situation where we don't know the impact of Sharda coming back and that sort of thing. And of course, his minutes are quite interesting as well. Since he came back, Dango, from AFCON, as far as I can tell, first game was a little bit, was in the 50s. But I think that he came off the bench for someone. I might be wrong about that, but he definitely didn't get the whole game. But then the second one, he got, again, limited minutes again, but that was in the game where they had a red card and they needed to take a forward off. Whereas the 2 games that he's had from the start that have been normal, he's got 80 odd minutes in both. So, or a full 90. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, but you're saying normal, but they're those games are without Sharda.
Without Sharda, yeah, exactly. So yeah,
so they're not normal. That's the problem, isn't it? So this is one of the reasons when we talk about Brentford of those teams listed at the top is. It's a difficult one because I'm about to say sort of 2 contradictory things because I think we need a few. We would need a few games. I'm not sure what information we can get, but we certainly need one more. This is going to help a lot to see it with Sharda back. That's one of the reasons I've not been desperate to watch those Arsenal highlights because you expect Sharda to come back in, and you generally expect him to have slightly better minutes than Dango. The thing is with Dango, and this is people, it's kind of a little bit short-sighted, isn't it? Everyone goes, "Oh, he's got to be nailed now," and it doesn't really work like that. Or he's played really well, he's nailed, but it doesn't work like that. He has always been not great with minutes at Brentford up until now, hasn't he? There were a lot of, I've not looked back just now, but there were a lot of kind of 59, 60-minute subs, and even 70 minutes across the season and stuff, which is unacceptable as an FPL pick. So yeah, you hope that it might improve, but you want to know what that looks like. Sharda's minutes have generally been a bit better, and so I would lean towards thinking if I could just if price didn't matter, I'd lean towards thinking Sharda's a bit better. Right now, I'd still lean towards thinking I don't really want Dango. It's too much of a bet because we've not had any evidence up to this point when they've all been fit that his minutes are good enough. And sometimes it's really random subs and it's like a system thing, and it's like 50 minutes or whatever. You just can't have that. So I just really don't know what it looks like. And then again, it's one of them where maybe too much knowledge because a load of people are just going to buy him, and then maybe
for sure, yeah.
And then others are like, well, what about the minutes? And it might be another 6 minutes, and then he just bangs. It's a very difficult one. And then Sharda is sort of a very different sort of player who is kind of, I do think he sort of works for that system in the sense that he doesn't have a huge amount to his game, but he's got pace, strength, and he's good in the air. And he knows how to get big chances, which is what Brentford do. And that's pretty much what he's got to his game. And so much so that he often sort of gets the chances ahead of Thiago. And you do want that in FPL, even if you think Dango is kind of a more interesting player and better dribbler and all that sort of stuff. But it's who's going to get the minutes. And I just don't know. So I'd like at least one game. Now, the problem with that is what happened a lot before AFCON was a bit of this hokey-cokey from memory, anecdotally, where he'd do sort of, Sharda would get 90. Dango would come off on 69, 70. Then the next game, Dango would get 90 and Sharda would come off early. And so I'm not sure what we can get from the next game. But anyway, that's the worry. Thiago's different, so that's why it's a different conversation. It is Brighton, so it's tougher than the other games, I would say. It's not urgent because you're talking about people like Rice, whoever you're talking about selling. There aren't many. Obviously all the Crystal Palace guys are great still this week. The Chelsea guys are good. Arsenal, I've got Spurs, which is not a great. I don't like it this week because it's a new manager bounce, isn't it? Against this guy, it's the North London derby. It's a new manager bounce. I have to talk about him at some point, by the way. They call him the Wolf.
What? This Tudor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call him the Wolf out of like Pulp Fiction because apparently he just goes in when shit proper hits the fan and just cleans up, kills everybody, and then leaves.
Okay.
So you don't really want any of your players going up against the Wolf this week in the first game in the derby, but yeah, I mean Arsenal assets are never bad. I mean if it's Rice, it's never bad. Loads of set pieces, defcon, good team. But yeah, I mean, what was the other one like? So I mean, Bournemouth have got West Ham. West Ham away is not a great fixture, and West Ham are decent. I mean, you can talk about West Ham, but they've looked better recently.
Yeah, for sure.
Fighting for their lives. I don't really like that for Bournemouth. And then obviously Liverpool have got Forest. They've got a new manager bounce as well, away. So I just think for me, for the answer to most of the question in this top one is that like just wait a week. Like there's a lot of info and another transfer. But yeah, what do you think?
Oh, well, it's easier from where you sit, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. I've got one transfer and I own Thiago. You have two transfers and you don't own Thiago. So we're going to have an opinion.
A big, beardy monster who eats goals and stands in the middle of the penalty area, just absorbing everything. Yeah. I mean, this is the problem with podding on a Monday, right? I defer to, Adam and Baker, etc., going on a Sunday night before anything is remotely stilled and trying to resist being incredibly reactionary. But truth of it is I'm still getting my head around it. I do think there is a little bit of a difference in the sense that I know that you don't necessarily feel quite as strongly about this, but there's no way that I will be keeping, unless something goes horribly wrong, there's no way I would be keeping Rice beyond 28 anyway. Like he's going this week or next week anyway, simply because there are so many other good options. I think if in a usual sort of scenario, if we were playing through the wild card wasn't on a sort of relatively soon horizon, maybe it would be a bit more patient. But with picks out there, as you say, like there's lots of different people that people don't have, etc. If Rodgers is your thing, fine. If Wirtz is your thing, fine. There are lots of nice options with a nice turning point at this time, so it would feel somewhat wasteful. And he obviously needs to go anyway at some point before 31. So there is that. I think for a lot of teams, you're absolutely right. 28 is probably the better play. In my particular situation, it's going to be much closer to the wire, I think, realistically. But actually, another player that people might be considering, and this would be very much a this week play, and I'm quite interested to see your view on this one because I'm in two minds as to what you'll say. But FPL Easy is written in to ask about Semenyo, and obviously someone who is doing terrifically well. I think he got another couple of returns, didn't he, in the cup? Is the potential upside of Cherki to Semenyo worth it with the blank looming in 31? And this is another person I can quite easily get to for what it's worth if you were desperate to get rid of Rice, but doesn't help you on the Thiago front. But what are you thinking? I mean, obviously you get a 4-game shootout there with Semenyo. It's a bit different with his scenario because he's selling Cherki.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how many transfers you've got. It seems pretty luxury. I mean, Semenyo's, I don't really know what to make of Semenyo, and maybe I need to watch. I mean, maybe I've missed. I mean, when things go really badly in FPL, you watch less football, which really doesn't help. Then it gets worse. But when you've had a bad couple of weeks, you just end up having not watched all that much football. I mean, he's got a 14-pointer, hasn't he, just now, Semenyo? But
yeah. I
mean, generally before that, even though he's good, he hasn't really struck me with any fear yet. He's not. He just, from what we've seen, kind of need to double return to get the really big scores. It's not really someone good for the bonus. There's no defcon there. There's no set pieces or penalties there. So he doesn't terrify me because he isn't the player with all these avenues. It isn't like super logical. Plus, he's a Man City player. So again, maybe this is. Do we have? I don't know. When does that start up again for City with Champions League? Because he's available for Champions League, isn't he? I don't know if you've got Legos. He's not updated.
Yeah, I do. It's a bit out of date, so I'm just going to warn you about this now. So this might not help us at all. But we got one of these. That doesn't help us at all, does it? Oh no, it does sort of. Where are we? Yeah, no, it doesn't help us.
No, it doesn't really, but not around this week. But I think there's a slightly more up to date one that I saw, but only a week or two, maybe not. But Yeah, I mean, it looks fine for Newcastle, but yeah, I mean, Champions League is around about after that, isn't it? A week or two after that, after Newcastle, I would think. So that's I might get Man City's fixtures up actually because it's pretty. I should have probably. I did think about that earlier and didn't have a look.
They're nice. So Newcastle was the first one, isn't it?
Oh no, I meant
Newcastle Leeds.
Yeah, they've not
Newcastle
been set.
Leeds.
My bad.
Yeah, okay, that's a bit wrong on the screen. But Newcastle, Leeds, Forest, and West Ham.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking the actual Champions League games haven't even been set yet. Of this, we can't actually see when they are. I don't think. So, yeah, I mean, look, Semenyo. I mean, again, this is one of those questions where what was very difficult for me last week. This is how much belief I had and have in Enzo. And the sort of potentially keeping him anyway till 31. We'll see how it goes. That might not really work out now, but that was very difficult for me emotionally to make this decision where I fully believed in Enzo, believed less, for example, in Salah. Right? Obviously, I think Salah is a good pick. I like him. He is a good pick. But there was a difference there in belief. So it's very difficult for me to go against belief because then that's when I open up the path to regret and stuff. But logically, Enzo was like 50, 60% owned or something ridiculous. And Salah was probably, I don't know what Salah is, but it would have been less than 10% owned, would have thought. So really taking away any kind of emotional feelings of potential regret and just like having, and actually, I mean, to be fair, I think Enzo was even, I'm looking at review, I'm looking at, not even review, of course I look at review, but even reviews said, actually had Enzo ahead of Salah. So that sort of thing helps. Like, Jesus, I wouldn't expect that. But what I'm saying is, there was such a big opportunity there in terms of ownership going for Salah, where you got a great player who nobody owns. So it's very difficult for me to reconcile those two things. And I ended up going with Enzo anyway, and not going for that kind of ownership opportunity thing. So the point is with Semenyo is how much you've got to really believe in this guy. You're talking about buying him for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, 4 weeks, I guess, because he blanks in 31 or whatever it is. So it's a transfer to get him in and transfer to get him out, which pretty much regardless of how many transfers you've got is, the way to think about that is 8 points, really. It's a transfer in and transfer out. For a guy who's 60% owned or more, who doesn't have any avenues, isn't on penalties, isn't on set pieces, doesn't get defcon. Now, he is very, very good, and it is a bit scary. Like, he looks like the minutes are good. He's playing in a great position with Haaland, so it could be great. I'm just saying that if you're thinking really logically, like, you could get someone who is much lower owned, does have a fixture in 31, does have good fixtures in general. And that's where I lean in that argument. But again, Semenyo looks great. So, I mean, what do you think? Have you thought about Semenyo?
Yeah. It doesn't work for me for obvious reasons because I'm so fixated on on Thiago. But
no matter what I ask tonight, it's just gonna be about Thiago, isn't it?
All roads. No, but I know you understand. But I think he's a great example of where, actually a question a bit later on down here. I know it's not exactly there. We're talking about transfers you should be making. But these are the kind of moves where logically it's absolutely fine to go for him if you have a reasonable amount of transfers and you've got a different strategy or whatever it might be. Because position wise, he's quite obviously going for the same sort of balls as Haaland to a point. He's in a great position on the pitch. He's looking really confident. We don't quite know what happens when Champions League starts. So I would very much understand why people would do it. That said, I don't think it warranted the kind of level of overreaction that there was at the weekend. I was seeing a lot of people kind of doing the typical social media immediately. It's stupid not to have Semenyo in your team. Isn't it ridiculous that we don't have? It was one of those. So I don't think it warrants quite that level. But
yeah,
which is great. Yeah.
I've been hearing. I think I've heard a few times Semenyo is better than Haaland now. That is a better pick than Haaland. Like, why own Haaland? Why own Haaland if you're going to Semenyo? I mean, this the sort of thing you've got to guard against. This sort of crazy nonsense narrative.
Would your position on it change if Haaland was out? I know it's a bit pointless being that speculative on that, but would he be more or less appealing in that scenario?
Yeah, you would definitely have to be more appealing in that scenario. I'm trying to think what that looks like with I don't know, with Marmoush and Semenyo or something like that.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It would have to be more appealing. I'd be gutted because obviously it makes him a bit better, and he's 60% owned, and I'm not planning on going there myself.
Yep.
So I'd be gutted, which says a lot. So yeah, I'm struggling with this question because I've not opened that door in my mind.
No.
Semenyo. I just prefer the more logical route that also means higher upside in terms of lower ownership players. Is what I think. But
yeah,
I mean, we're gonna talk about selling Haaland soon, so this is all sort of part of the same conversation. A lot of these questions are part of that same. Thiago's part of that conversation. Wirtz is part of that conversation, because we've got to get ready for the fact that Haaland out is. I mean, I'm already seeing that on review, so that's going to be optimal. At the moment, it's not going to be the case. It's not going to be the case for everyone's team, but if I'm seeing it a lot, and I know the sort of general mechanics of it, and I know the minutes of players, and if it's optimal at the moment. So if Haaland out is optimal still in 28 and in 30, and it's optimal on the models, most people are going to do it. So that's how it works. So people are going to be like, oh, that conversation completely changes when it's optimal on the models. Because if it wasn't optimal on the models, no one will do it. No one would do it apart from a few, maybe a few analytics managers or whatever that really want to engage with some risk.
Yeah,
it's literally that straightforward, because obviously it's such a scary, monumental thing to do, to sell the best player in the game, the guy who's your captain. It's a loss aversion. It goes against all of our kind of psychological biases. It's really difficult to sell a guy like Haaland, bet on a guy like Salah, for example, who hasn't quite done it yet, but he's starting to look better. But as soon as that becomes optimal and it passes through and it channels through every podcast, which is what's going to happen, all the major people, that's what's happening at the moment, is everyone at the moment, as it stands, is going to sell Haaland in 28 or 30 and get probably Salah. So then you're talking about two spots that open up and one less City player. So what does that mean for all of these transfers and these positions? I mean, you know what I mean? It's someone like you as well. Like, you could get caught out if you set your two transfers for Thiago, fine, and it could work out fine. You might decide that you really want to sell Haaland and get on the Salah train, which could be fine, because then you have to wait till 30. But then a lot of things have to go right for you to suddenly get in that position where you've got to get back to 2 free transfers, get to 30, and then sell Haaland again. Whereas, sort of thing. Whereas, for example, if you waited another week, maybe you sell Haaland to get Thiago, and actually get sort of slightly ahead of that whole move and move your team in a different direction.
Yeah, I'm just going to check in on this, because I'll be honest with you. I haven't considered it as carefully as you, in terms of whether it was going to be, as you say, something that comes up and solves and that sort of thing. But are we talking about a scenario in which he's injured and therefore moves are made to get rid of him, or is still just optimal because obviously the fixtures are still quite reasonable until the end of his in the end of his time, aren't there, in terms of the blank? They're obviously very good. So
yeah, it's not about the injury. I guess it will depend on your team as well. I'm saying it's coming up on mine, so I'm just trying to think in my head why that would be and how it would be different for other people. So, for example, it's going to be, the Thiago owners and the Ekitike owners are very different. I think one of the reasons it's probably coming up for me, for example, is that you've got the potential to get Ekitike and Salah, where Liverpool have obviously got West Ham at home, Wolves away, Spurs at home, and Brighton a fixture in 31. So maybe that's a sort of tipping point in terms of having both. If you've already got Ekitike, maybe it's different. I'm not sure what that looks like, but no, it's nothing. It's nothing about the injury, because it's just. Obviously, these things come down to captaincy ultimately. So if you're talking about 28, Liverpool have got West Ham at home, Wolves away. As good as City's fixtures are, I don't think they're as good. So Salah is likely to, it doesn't take much for him to suddenly go ahead on the models. And of course, for a good few weeks now, I've been happy to ignore that, really, because I'm not seeing enough from Salah on the pitch, and I still haven't necessarily quite. But he was very different on Saturday. I only saw bits of highlights. I was out. I don't really buy into all of this kind of kind of, a lot of it's kind of narrative nonsense, I think, about the stats, about how they've changed. Now he's a different player, because that's just like taking a sample of like 5 or 6 games or something. And then when you look at the sample of like 5 or 6 games before AFCON, the stats were like better. So I'm not sure I buy into all that kind of nonsense. I'm sure he has changed aspects of his game, but I'm not really, what I want to see from Salah is, does he look that yard sharper? Is he taking people on? Is he getting to those positions? Is he getting shots off? Does he look confident? All that kind of stuff. And I'm not really seeing that yet, apart from definitely more on Saturday. So that sort of thing has to change. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, obviously, a blank in 31 is massive in terms of what that does to what's optimal and what's better. And again, what I've just talked about so far in terms of Semenyo and all those ownership things is, most of the casuals are not going to do that. When I say everyone, lots of the engaged managers will, but most of the casuals, a huge number of people who are ahead of us won't be doing that move, especially not as early as 28. So you're getting a move that's both optimal and huge upside in terms of ownership. So it all comes down to captaincy and obviously 31. So that's huge when you get a transfer ahead. You get 2 players who play in 31. You get rid of Haaland, who doesn't. So, I mean, there's a question there about Wirtz. It massively changes it again. It's that conversation. I don't really know what that looks like, because I've been looking at Wirtz for a while and thinking he looks great. I still think he looks great. I still wanted him in my thoughts in terms of, do I want to go there? How do I get there? But suddenly that conversation changes a bit, because Wirtz is now kind of only if you're not getting Salah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's completely different conversation now.
Yeah, so it's interesting actually, because I suppose a lot of people might get in this scenario where they are Haaland or Wirtz people, or they are Salah and Ekitike. I know that's not as simple as that, but there'll be a lot of people with that kind of bind. Yes, that is an interesting thought. Well, I'm glad that you've raised. I mean, actually, just whilst we're on the kind of Salah Wirtz point, I mean, is that clear enough for you? Because I know that it's actually odd man out. I didn't realize it was Eno actually asking that question earlier about whether Salah is a trap when you compare price with Wirtz. But it's not. I suppose it isn't that simple, is it? Because of course it is probably about people's captaincy sway in those weeks. So if you are not captaining Wirtz, I suppose probably is more likely to be someone that you want in your team, and Salah is more if you want captaincy. But the numbers are interesting, by the way, because actually, I know Salah's have been creeping up XGI wise and that sort of thing. But Wirtz is an interesting one because they're not quite as consistent across the last patch of games, but the home games in particular is hitting really high numbers. Away, a little bit less so. But at home, some of them are quite comfortably over 1. So it's
I mean, and to be honest, I've been looking less at the numbers. I should probably look at that, and I've been prioritizing more just like the eye test on Wirtz, because it is really hard, that question about Salah and Wirtz. And of course, it could be a trap. It could go either way, that sort of thing. So this is sort of different conversation. I mean, Salah does depend on the confidence. It does depend on his fitness, his speed, his physical abilities these days. But of course, you're talking about a guy who, I mean, you're talking about captaincy there. If you are talking about Salah and Wirtz, like we've said, you're talking about whether you've got Haaland or not. So then you're talking about captaincy, and you've got a guy who's on penalties, and one of the best goal scorers in Premier League history, and really low ownership. So Salah looks better in terms of a captain. So it's kind of a complex conversation. But yeah, like I'm watching Wirtz at the moment, and you've got to really like what you're seeing with Wirtz at the moment. He is just a little bit like Enzo. He's one of these guys who just seems to have the right attitude. Like he's just worked so hard. He looks like he's naturally really fit. He's fearless. He's got completely the right attitude in terms of his effort and in terms of what he does on the pitch and the positions he puts himself into, the risks that he takes, his confidence. He can receive the ball in any space. He's not bothered. And he's one of these guys who, a bit like Bruno in the sense where he's constantly trying to make something happen. Every pass is like, I want to make the difference. Not quite at Bruno level in that sense of like having it all in terms of, the goals as well. But when you see someone, you can see them just riding that wave of not just those things that I've said, but kind of fitness. And you think, oh God, this guy's, he's just still running in the 90th minute. He's ahead of everyone in fitness. And you want to catch that wave at the right time, in the sense that that it's taken him a long time to get here to where he is now, and to sort of be the guy who's pulling the strings and be the best player. So he's someone that I've thought, again, in that conversation about Wirtz, when you look at some Wirtz versus that's a conversation as well versus like the Brentford guys. If you are keeping Haaland or keeping Haaland for the foreseeable, that's a really interesting one because Brentford have probably got better fixtures slightly, and in some of them anyway, like the Burnley away and the Bournemouth, these sort of games, and they've got these big chance guys, these goal scorer guys. But Wirtz does feel more solid. It feels more repeatable. The minutes are definitely better. Go on.
Yeah, no, this is exactly so why I was a bit annoyed with the kind of the Munoz outcome last week, I suppose, is that the two players I've been fixated on for this kind of period of time, increasingly so as it approached these kind of fixtures, particularly because of Wirtz, is that it's become quite apparent just watching. Like, this is someone who I really, really don't want to go without, and it's him and Thiago. It just seemed like the obvious people. I hadn't really thought so much about Salah. We'll come to that in a second because there's quite a useful comment that someone's reminded us about Ramadan in the chat as well, which of course is always a conversation whenever Salah is someone who we want to bring into our team. So, as you say, I'm just going to give an example. In my own instance, for example, a defender downgrade to open up, and Thiago enables Rice to Wirtz next week. Whereas if you go for someone like a Dango, as you say, and you do that now, then you don't have a route to Wirtz in 28 if you want him. So it's quite nice because in 28 you get to make a decision between the two. You've got Wirtz against West Ham at home, you've got Dango against Burnley away, etc. So that you do ideally want that decision to be in 28. It's quite hard to make it in 27, so it's an interesting one. What do you think about the Ramadan? Because we've had this conversation before, haven't we, about Salah during Ramadan? Is that soon? Is it that's coming up? I'm not good on anything.
It is, but obviously, Ramadan's earlier in the year. Am I right in thinking it's earlier?
Earlier. It feels like it, yeah.
So it's February, so it gets dark very early. I mean, it obviously means you have to fast less, or when you can start eating earlier. In my mind, again, a lot of people sort of share numbers, and I don't know where they pick the samples from, and is it always just from Ramadan? On the eye, generally, Salah's always been a bit killed off by towards the end of Ramadan previously, in my mind. There you go. Did someone just say it's different February to late April? Yeah. Is that how much difference it is? So that's really significant. And previously it's kind of coincided with, so it's not just been later in the year, but obviously it's coincided for longer with bigger games, for example, in the Champions League, where it's sort of really must be difficult when you're playing at night time, you're playing in the morning, you're playing late at night, when you've not got that routine anymore about how long you have food before you play, and also, so it must be a nightmare. Because in my mind, it has killed him a lot in a lot of seasons where he's had to mix that Ramadan, where he's been on for seasons that are just unbelievable, and then it just dies off when it gets really important, which is, you have to think that correlation with Ramadan makes a lot of sense because you're changing when you eat. You're an elite athlete in the Premier League. It's a massive deal. But yeah, it is different February. And I think it would take a while for it to sort of really affect or kick in. And then obviously he's had a different timeline this year where he's didn't play much. He's not been knackered all season. He's probably, you would hope to think that he's actually only just approaching fitness, maybe for the first time this season, which is why his form suddenly looked a bit better. So I basically wouldn't, I wouldn't even factor in Ramadan in any way into my sort of thinking about that at the moment.
No, it's the timing is a huge point. So yeah, thank you for those in the chat that have brought that up. That's very useful indeed. We'll just quickly wrap off that section here. It's just, I tend to gather the kind of player questions into one section, and that's what you see there. We've touched on Thiago a bit, but I'll come back to that in a second. This value midfielder one is quite interesting. I'm guessing again it's a bit clearer to know how to stand on this in 28, which is when, for what it's worth, I've got Wilson this week and Sunderland away. I'm not particularly thrilled about that, to tell you the truth. I don't regard that as being a great game. But from 28, those fixtures look an awful lot better. I think on paper anyway, lots of more home games, decent games, that sort of thing. Rayan, is amongst this conversation. So best value midfielder for the run until the blank, Dango, Rayan and Wilson. For what it's worth, just based purely on what I've seen of big chances, I would probably lean Dango there if he had the minutes. But again, another week of information is probably what you want there. Where do you stand on that one, Danny?
Yeah, I'm not wild about any of them, really. I mean, just looking at Wilson's fixtures, I mean, he's got Burnley at home in 31, which is great. So that's the big appeal. And his other one is West Ham at home. I still find it hard to read West Ham at the moment. I don't think it's a green fixture, really. But I just feel like you need to talk about West Ham at home because loads of teams are playing them. But
yeah,
they look better to me. And they've got a manager who, when it starts to click, it tends to click for a bit. And I just sort of think they're desperate. So I can't really view West Ham as a great fixture. And then they've got sorry, just to say before you say that, it's Sunderland away, which is terrible. Then they've got Spurs at home, which again, my general feeling will be that this change in manager will make them probably pretty good. I mean, you can only go one direction, so if it tends to sort of exaggerate in the first few weeks. So I would view that as not a great fixture. And then Forest away, they've got the 2 new manager bounces, and I expect Forest to be better as well. I mean, Dyche is just a dinosaur. It's a shocking appointment to begin with. So I don't actually. I'm looking at that, and it's West Ham and Burnley. So what do you think about West Ham fixture?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think the weekend reminded us that there's no doubt about it that West Ham's second string or reserve players are of no quality whatsoever. So you need the starting team on the pitch. I think it's fair to say though, basically they kind of settled on a bit more of a formula lately and stuck to it, and that's worked pretty well. So for example, it's weird. I know you know this, but as an outsider, perhaps you spot it as well. I'm not sure, but someone like a Souček is one of those players who, now that you need him, now that there's a scrap, now that you need someone coming careering late into the box, now you need a bit of, I think he's Czech's captain, isn't he, and that sort of thing. Having someone like that, he now looks like someone who you must play every game. Whereas, a lot of, whenever West Ham change managers and people want sort of pretty football and that sort of thing, he's the first name where everyone's like, oh God, some games he only completes 8 passes a game and that kind of thing. But right now he kind of looks irreplaceable. Fernandes looks excellent at the moment, really, really good. They've settled. I mean, Tati Castellanos is one of those players who, he's never going to get a great deal of goals, but he's just making everything else work, linking up, being there for most of the minutes, that sort of thing, providing a bit of a fulcrum. And Somerville looks, relative to our situation, like a sensational player at the moment. Like he is the danger man. He's the one where he makes everything happen. It's incredible. As soon as he came off the bench for that cup game, for example, he's the man who's taking it to the opposition, etc. So they do look pretty good. And strangely enough, defensively, Disasi, I was a bit skeptical about that signing. Deadline day, another payday. He's that kind of player, isn't he? He's been to Villa for a loan and that sort of thing. You're not really sure what you're going to get. He's fitted in really well. I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps his place even when Tadebo's back in the team because of the red card thing being over. So I think it's pretty positive at the moment. If they weren't so far, unfortunately, it's so close, and there are so many teams that look like they're almost safe, aren't they? That's the problem. Is that West Ham's surge has come a bit late in the day, but it's close enough to keep them interested. So I don't think they'll be out of any of these games. I think there's a chance, for example, that Liverpool could put 3 or 4 past them without too much trouble, but I don't think they'll be out of any of those games. I could imagine us going to Anfield, for example, and holding, being close in the game into the last 10 minutes and then being blown away. Fine. But I think they are going to be in and around. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's a good point, actually. And I couldn't say anything about Spurs and Forest at this point in time. I know their fans are understandably pretty down on them as a team and, based on previous, but yeah, we look all right, actually.
Yeah, so
not great, but all right.
Yeah, I just can't. I find it hard to see any team blowing them away, actually, for those reasons, just because of this sort of players and the organisation, the manager. And that might be completely wrong, but you mentioned Liverpool, and Liverpool have looked better and they've looked solid and they look sort of on the up and they look good and look okay. But one thing they never look like is sort of battering a good team. They just don't look like doing that at the moment. And and obviously United struggled against West Ham, and it's probably like underplayed how well West Ham have got to play to do that against United at the moment. So yeah, they're playing a lot of these relevant teams at the moment. And they're playing Fulham, they're playing Bournemouth. So in terms of those guys as well, as I say, Dango, I just don't know yet about Dango. I need to see better minutes. If Dango comes off once on 50 minutes, which he's done this season more than once before 60 minutes, that is devastating. Makes him terrible. I don't care if he does it once. And it doesn't matter how well someone's playing. He's tended to be the fall guy if they have to flip around with systems. So I just don't know what that looks like yet. This Rayan guy, I've not watched much of him, to be honest, yet. Yeah. Obviously, he looks like he's going to be great. But for me, the biggest question about Rayan there is obviously Tavernier's coming back soon, I think. So that makes without the information yet, I'm not even sure if Tavernier is a pick. I don't really know what that looks like yet for any of them. Because I don't know, does he get straight? He probably does get straight back in. Where does he play? I don't know. I mean, he's still got penalties. If he does, he might not. Maybe he doesn't get straight back in. Maybe this guy's just unbelievable. So yeah, I'm not wild about any of those on the list, to be honest. Go on.
I'm going to say something which I know will make sense to you, and I don't know whether it will make sense to any of our listeners. But the question about value midfielders, it strikes me as they are what you might call they're thread picks. And what I mean by that is if you go on X, you'll see a lot of threads. Dango or Rayan, Dango or Rayan, Dango, Rayan or Wilson. Like nobody knows that's exactly why you want another week or something like that. I think the conversation, this is my problem with my move when we come to it later on, is that Wirtz doesn't feel like he's in that conversation. And I guess that's why he's 2.5 million more or whatever you want to call it. But all of those value midfielders, they're thread picks, which means to say you can roll the dice there and they're pretty good options. So, if you were picking one of them against Anderson this week, you'd probably take the risk. It seems worthwhile with the lovely fixtures and that sort of thing. But you don't know which one you're going to roll and it's going to hit the high numbers and which one's going to roll and just be a disappointment. It is a bit of guesswork, unfortunately. And Rayan's 19 and he's played 2.5 games in English football. Dango is brilliant, if he gets good minutes, and he's incredible. And I don't know whether you describe him as incredibly selfish. He is quite selfish, and he does get big chances and that sort of thing. And I do like him. He's one of those players you're drawn to. And Harry, well, I made my bet there, and he's there. If I had more transfers, I'd probably have. I don't know whether I'd be staying there, to tell you the truth, but he's there now. That's the truth of it. So it's a tricky one. But yeah, I get your point.
Because again, one of the things. Sorry to keep saying this, because normally I'm good for just like watching all the football and need to catch up with a lot of stuff. But where did Szoboszlai play in the last game? Because didn't he play further up the field? Didn't him and Wirtz both players like kind of advanced sort of 8-10 site players? I don't know, but he didn't play right back last game, did he? I don't think. I
think Gomez managed to play the last game, but that don't forget they had the Brighton game as well. So I don't know if we're thinking about that or the Sunderland one, but he's definitely not played all of that at right back or anything like that. I'm sure one or two in the chat might be able to confirm, but yeah, that's an interesting point. So we can't forget about him. He's 6.6 or 7, 6.7, I think.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's an information thing. Like if he is playing further up, and they're changing the system, then is he that expensive now? Is he 6.7 or something? I thought it was a bit cheaper than that. That's fair enough. But
no, I'm sure he's at least 6.7 actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, hard to know where he played in the last game. Anyway, so one to keep an eye on.
Fellow in the chat might just confirm his price to us, Szoboszlai. But yes, we better make up a bit of pace here. Just very quick. I mean, Thiago, I guess we've talked about a little bit, haven't we, already? But perhaps that might be saved best for when we look at my team, whether he's a must-have for the fixtures. For those of, I mean, actually, I suppose the question there from Pete is he's got the same setup as I have, actually, isn't he? Haaland, Ekitike, and Fodder. Yeah.
I mean, you definitely, just to finish those sort of top half questions off, I think we made it pretty clear. I don't know, but Thiago is a must, really. I mean,
he is.
I don't really like using that word, but you do need to get Thiago in because we've got incredible fixtures and he's an incredible pick and he's cheap and he's got 90 minutes.
It's not that he's a must. It's just that he is.
Yeah, he is. He just is. Yeah,
he is. Thiago is. So make what you will from that. A few more questions here. Some on captaincy, which I'd like to come to in just a second. Perhaps, and Mikey, they're asking about chasing. I mean, is it time? Actually, I'm trying to think of his scenario. I know that he took a pretty tough week, like a lot of people did, and I think he's outside the top million. And for a manager that's got an incredible recent record, so a bit difficult to take. But are there particular transfers that you'd be drawn to in that sort of situation, or is it just carry on playing sensibly?
I think there's a lot of opportunity now to do really logical things that also mean, for example, if you had 2 or 3 transfers now and you really wanted to go for it, then what would be very logical to me would be, for example, to sell Haaland this week and get and do it such that you bring in Palmer, captain him at home to Burnley, leave enough money in the bank to go from Palmer to Salah, and then captain Salah for the next few weeks, for example. That is a big bet on Salah, but we're seeing something at the moment. As I say, it's sort of backed up. But these are the sort of moves where, and again, like a lot of these guys, they're brilliant picks on paper. I mean, if Tavernier, for example, if he is nailed, nobody owns him. They've got fantastic fixtures. He's on penalties. He's a great pick. I'm trying to think who else. Like, I guess not many people own Wirtz. I mean, Sharda. Again, we all talk about these guys.
Sharda, yeah.
A lot of people will get him, but there's so many teams are so different at the moment. There's so many paths to go that even though Sharda will be big on the kind of be talked about a lot, not many people are going to have him. Not many people are going to go there because people are just all over the place with different teams. So these all look like brilliant picks with brilliant fixtures. So I'd be thinking, obviously, if I was chasing, I'd be thinking you always got to think about captaincy. But this feels like you don't get this often where you've got. I don't want to repeat myself, so the last thing I'll say, but you don't get this often where you've got justifiable, people call it free risk, whatever, but justifiable picks that are it's backed up statistically, it's backed up by predicted points in a lot of these instances where you can, get captain a guy who nobody owns. And
yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because you are going to have, I mean, we don't know for certain, but you're definitely going to have a number of weeks in the remainder before and including the blank where Haaland is not the optimal captain or not the preferred captain by models and that sort of thing. So presumably, and without looking at it, but I mean, 31 is going to be Bruno or Salah, isn't it? Realistically, one would tend to think. And then you've got a couple of weeks where Salah is certainly as good as on paper. Because for people who scoff at that, you have to remember that I know that everyone knows it, but the extra point for the clean sheets and everything else, you have to remember those kind of extra bits and pieces as well. So
I'm just having
an interesting one.
Quick look out of interest on review. So Salah's clear game week 28. Second game week 29, 0.3 behind Haaland. Clear game week 30. And Fernandes and Salah 31. So, I mean, again, that's just review, but if you're chasing, that's the path of least regret, I would say.
Yes, very interesting indeed. No, good. I'm glad that we. I know Mikey, and he's already done the move. He's definitely done it. He's hit the button. Salah is in. Haaland, no regrets. No, well, we'll see. I'll have a chat to him later. Your captaincy is an interesting one, though. So how big a gap do you think there is between Palmer and Haaland, the captain this week? I think, and of course, whether Cole Palmer is worth a transfer given the favourable run. I mean, that's an interesting one because, again, I suspect it will be not that common unless Haaland is ruled out for the weekend, and then suddenly there will be a lot of interest. I mean, I think it's fair to say if you had Cole Palmer this week, you kind of have to. It feels like you have to. That would be a huge regret if you didn't do it. I know that Newcastle at home is a very nice fixture at the moment as well, but
yeah, it's
you have to though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it couldn't have gone better for Palmer owners, I'm afraid. I mean, is what it is. Not many people own him, so people like Late Rise are happy for him and stuff. I mean, he was struggling, so he sort of felt like he had to go for it, which is fine, sort of roll the dice. But I'd have to say that I do, in most cases, I think Palmer was a pretty objectively bad pick a few weeks ago when a lot of people got him. He was just injured and just the minutes looked terrible. Still doesn't look himself. But yeah, to get 3 penalties, I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, so that first week, I mean, he came off on 60 minutes, so it's just shows you. But there we are. So he's had 3 penalties. In 2 games, so it couldn't have gone any better. And now is obviously the game where he looks he looks a bit fitter, which is great. And obviously they've got that big gap between, they've got loads of rest before and after Burnley, so it couldn't look any better. So even though he still doesn't look himself, he is on some goal scoring form, and probably feels pretty good about that. So yeah, it's just I would 100% captain Palmer if I had him. But I also think that if we hope Haaland is fit, I'm sort of low key quite happy about that. I do. We are relying on because I actually don't like Fernandes much. I just can't stand anything against Everton. Really, they're just so difficult, and they just can always find a way to do teams over, and I don't like it. So I don't like that at all. So it's a bit worrying for Haaland owners because I'm quite heavily relying on him being fixed. I wouldn't like anyone else.
Yeah. You are right to say, though, isn't it? It is a really nasty situation if Haaland was out for one. That would be such a horrible situation because it's a good captaincy this week, and there isn't. I mean, I suppose you have Enzo. Maybe you could do that, but I mean, I don't know about you. I never like captaining players without penalties for whatever reason. So that would be a really, really difficult decision if he wasn't around. Easier for those of us with more than one, I guess. But to the second part of that question, though, I mean, Pep. I know that Pep won't listen to me. He never does. But unless you have 3 or 4 free transfers, there is absolutely no way I would be rooting my team around to get him for one game. I know that it's quite plausible that he could get 15, 20 points, but you just have to assume that that is not the most likely course of action, even against Burnley.
Yeah.
So boring answer, sorry. And to finish up with on this one anyway, it's been a lot of chat this week about people's reflections on defcon. I think it was because of the triple captain, everyone's... I suppose it was like, I don't know whether it was like this for you the other night, but it was a Thursday night, wasn't it? We sort of count, like Rice scrapes in and gets 12 right at the death. And I think Gabriel was up to quite high numbers in the end for his, and obviously doesn't get more exponentially than, when he gets past 10 or anything like that. So there's an assumption there from FPL Grimes that it's not going anywhere. What's your thought there? I know it's not the end of the season, but it has been talked about quite a lot by people this week.
Yeah, it won't go anywhere. Certainly not yet. I mean, the biggest thing that I'm worried about is the real danger is once you open the door to defcon is sort of thing we've seen so far in terms of these discussions is, okay, it's not going anywhere. So how can we improve it? How can we layer it? What about this? What about that? And this is it's so important. And thankfully, I'm fingers crossed. I think, and I really hope I'm right in saying that, I think Mark knows that you can't have many more at all layers or any other. You shouldn't have anything else other than this defcon metric. I think Mark presumably made it just one metric with a cap of 2 points because he knows that if you I mean, I saw a reply to Adam Hopcroft and I was surprised at a comment by him, to be honest. I didn't even think we needed to have this conversation anymore from any sort of serious managers. And he was saying, yeah, I want to see this layered thing where we get more points. So that's a different conversation in terms of 1, 2, 3. If you get more and more defcon, that's kind of fine. But this is what I mean about danger opening the door, because his next sentence was, And then I'd also like to see pass completions and shots on target like Sky.
Oh no!
And I'm telling you now, right? It hurts me deeply because I will lose the game that I like to play. I'll lose the hobby. I'm not interested in one. The game's dead if that happens, and it's really serious because if that happens, models will be able to predict the teams just too well. You can't go against it. It's too easy when you give it all that information. Sky was a straightforward. It was a fun game to do something different on the side because it was completely different. You had to strip away a lot of most of any kind of feeling about a player, having an inspirational thinking this guy looks in good form, or I want to be on this guy because you just knew where the points were coming from. You knew you know what people get in terms of the pass completions, the shots on target, how often they hit it, how often they get tackles. So that was without models, and I'm not being funny. I only played Sky a few seasons, and it wasn't very difficult really to finish in the top 200. Obviously, it's difficult to win it because you sort of get the echelons where you just need that bit of luck. But I mean, I finished like 80th. Barely even trying. I mean, and then finished 80th and 90th. And both of those seasons, I forgot my team on at least 3 or 4 weeks because it's just a different game. And that was without models. So I don't want to, I hope this doesn't happen. So maybe I don't need to rant about this, but you cannot let that happen to FPL because it will just be so template. There won't be any room to beat the models. There won't be any room to beat because it'd be so easy. The more information you give the models about how players get points, the easier it is. So I think Mark knew that in terms of it was a bit dangerous with defcons because they are much easier to predict. But he put a 2-point cap on it, and he kept all of these different things into one metric. So that's really important. So you've got to stop that conversation as soon as anybody starts talking about all this other stuff, pass completion and shots. The game will be dead. So it's shocking. Now this is the reason why those conversations are happening, because once you open the door, people then look for but what about this? What about this? Oh, but what about that? And then we start thinking about all these ideas, and they don't know what, most people don't know what I've just said, because why would they? Because they haven't played these other games. They don't know about models. They don't know how it works like that. So a lot of people will think that sounds like a great idea and show support for it. Cannot let that happen. Game over. So that aside, incredibly important. I don't think it's going anywhere. The idea of, I say this tentatively because me saying then the idea of this 1 point, 2 point, 3 point is exactly what I just said, where we're sort of looking for something and adding something else to it and changing it slightly, and it's no longer a 2-point cap. So I wish we could have that conversation like rationally and know that nothing else was going to change. But if it didn't, then I'd be okay with that, because I do think I said at the start of the season there was someone got like plus 20 defcons or something at the start of the season. And I was like, that should be 4 points. That should be times 2 or whatever, because that is a real outlier. You don't see that often, 20 plus point defcon, and I quite like the idea of it's kind of still within that cap of points. So it's not going anywhere, and it could do with slight adjustments, but you must put a really massive wall against anything further than those slight adjustments on what it is and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I won't labour the point too much because I mostly agree with that. I think the only, just as an absolute kind of minute point here, is that I wouldn't be surprised if they leveled off defender and midfielder defcon returns. So I would, because obviously there is I don't know this actually for certain, but there is a lower percentage chance, isn't there, of midfielders hitting the defcon threshold anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just do 10 and 10, and then, as you say, double up potentially if they hit 20, because that's so unlikely, isn't it? No one ever hits 20 really on the whole. It's only a couple of times a season, or it's a Mavropanos level.
Well, someone suggested one for 10, two for 15, and 3 for 20, which again, I don't like having this conversation, and I don't want to say it. So I hate it. I'm having to force myself, but that would be it. But I don't mind the sound of that. That seems reasonable. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to go anywhere for a while. And I think I think Andy did. A lot of people don't like it on kind of Twitter, and a lot of us guys and sort of the well-known managers. But I think was it Andy did a poll on Twitter, and that did like 10,000 responses, and 75% were for it. So the general experience amongst everyone else has been that they like it. Now that might change because it's been a bit of a leveler this season, I think, in a sense, and it's taken a lot of serious managers longer to get used to it, and maybe it's taken away a little bit of their normal advantage. And So, you know, they're sort of maybe seen a bit of a bigger spread of ranks. So maybe that changes next year or the year after when we do get more used to it. Models get more used to it, and so on and so on. And obviously, there's the conversation around football, and does football change? Because it has changed this season, and how does it change? You know, we're obviously seeing a lot more set pieces and throws and sort of that sort of football that involves this kind of defcon stuff. So I think we have to accept that it's going to be there next year, at least, maybe another year, and then we just have to see how it goes from there. But yeah, as I say, hopefully Mark knows. That's the good thing about having Mark there, is that I think he knows. He thankfully just about started to get involved with models and things like FPL review enough for his last year of being on pods, from what I could see, because he wasn't really a model player, and then he got very interested in it. I think he got involved enough to know what could happen if he doesn't control it, the information.
Yeah, cool. I think we can probably move on from that. But it's interesting, actually. Just the thing that sprung to my mind just at the end there is that I know that there was an assumption that it would bring a lot more players into the game, and yeah, it's all, you know, okay, you can make that point. But what's interesting is that is now that there's a category of player, it's like, which is almost amusing, is like, what do you do? And I'm looking at you, Omar Alderete. You were meant to be the most important pick in the game. Where were you when I needed you? No defcons, no nothing. But yeah, I'm just thinking about someone like a Freddie Potts, you know, who never hits defcon threshold, does a couple of nice passes every now and again, and is basically pointless in FPL. It's quite well.
You know, this is the other part of that conversation, by the way, though. You know, like, which is obvious, so I don't want to repeat the other things that people have said, but the subjective nature of it is, in terms of choosing what's a defcon and what isn't, is unacceptable.
Yeah, good.
The lack of the updates in time is totally unacceptable. Like, for someone like me who's just can't cope with injustices at all, you know, for someone who never watched Formula One again after that disgraceful thing that happened to Hamilton, and for example, or tennis and snooker, I really struggle with anything that isn't fair. Like, I struggle deeply. So it's all right when you're not going to win the game, but if I was going to win the game, I'd be having a heart attack, because I couldn't cope with the idea. I can accept losing, but I can't accept losing because of some complete injustice or unfairness, where the game, my defcon players were on the last game of the week and they didn't get their update until it was too late. That sort of shit that's got to go. I'm sure that will go next season, by the way, because that's completely unacceptable. Yeah, the subjective nature of like how they get them, and as a lot of people have talked about, like, people are getting defcon for doing rubbish things, giving the ball away and then winning it back or whatever, or doing some crap clearance. So it needs tweaking, but the fairness thing is an absolute joke. It's outrageous, and also getting def cooked is horrible. I mean, what's
God.
You know, I've had an all right week, but I had Tarkowski and Njai, and the one thing about starting Tarkowski for me this week was basically, if Thiago blanks and Tarkowski blanks, well, Tarkowski will outscore him because he'll probably get defcon. Tarkowski was on 9 defcon after about 65 minutes. How does Tarkowski be on 9 defcon after 65 minutes? And didn't they have 10 men? I think they had 10 men. How does is that
right? Yeah.
How does he finish the game on 9 defcon? And Njai, in the same game, was on 11 defcon after about 70 minutes and finished the game on 11 defcon. How is that possible? It was absolutely outrageous.
I'd love to. I mean, I wouldn't love to watch that game for this purpose, but there's no way that he would have been on pitch for half an hour plus and not got anything.
No, because I'm there looking at the defcon, because I had nothing going that game. As I say, I didn't have the TV channels, so I'm like looking at the app, looking at Bet365, following the scores. I mean, it's not enjoyable. I don't like it. I don't like this sort of thing about defcon.
It begs another question: is that if you had a Tarkowski cam, which of course we all wish we did, like, what does he do on a football pitch for half an hour if he doesn't get C-bits defcons? Exactly.
Just
what does he do?
Growl at people.
Growl. Wow. Okay, cool. Wait, sorry, I don't know why I did that. Move on from that. We don't have the Rob T because it's early in the week, and you know, he's busy on his sun lounger enjoying a large cocktail midweek, no doubt. So instead, we're going to go straight to teams and the relative sunny uplands of Danny's team.
Straight to teams, are we?
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's all right. Just thinking. Right, I better read my team out now. So, okay, so I've got Raya in goal, Gabriel, Van Dijk, Lacroix at home to Wolves, Njai, Mbumo, Fernandez, Rice, Enzo, Thiago and Haaland, captaincy at the moment. Tarkowski first sub, Hall second sub away at City. So I've actually got a bench finally. I've got no transfers, but obviously I hope Haaland isn't injured. So yeah, it looks like a fairly easy role for me. I'm fully expecting and demanding another 17-pointer from Van Dijk, by the way. We didn't talk about Van Dijk. How do you feel about Van Dijk? Because a lot of people, isn't it funny, like in terms of, I mean, obviously it's funny, but also like incredibly infuriating as someone who's owned Van Dijk for ages and ages and ages to hear people laughing and scoffing and people, people whispering about you on the street and just looking down on you like you're a terrible manager. And then you get 17-pointer and everyone's going, oh yeah. Munoz to Van Dijk is absolutely nailed on. Timber to Van Dijk's nailed on. He's going to be 80% owned. And I'm like, what? I'm not sure that I'm convinced by that by the way, because I like to think with Van Dijk, so many people have so much so made their mind up on him as being a crap pick that they're not really going to go there. But I don't know. Again, maybe it's optimal. Maybe a lot of people are going there. But because I'm looking at that now and thinking, I mean, Van Dijk's been a great pick, I think, for the last few weeks because Liverpool have been good and he's a good pick and he's nailed and he's got some goal threat and he's got defcon and now he's got great fixtures. But is everyone going to be? Loads of people going to buy him or?
Yes, but I mean, yes, because they've got defenders that they know they're going to need to get rid of at some point, and he's the easiest, most justifiable pick in that category, isn't he? You know, it's a bit like if I hadn't have bought Munoz last week, I think it would almost be inevitable that he would have come in and might still come in. But yeah, he will be pretty popular. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can talk about
whether he's worth the transfers over the Liverpool attackers is another conversation, isn't it? People don't have many knocking around. That's the thing.
Yeah, I guess you can talk about Timber in a minute, but he's someone that obviously, because he doesn't play in 31, I guess a lot of people, because that's a cash cow, isn't it? In terms of people be thinking about Timber to.
We'll come to that.
But anyway, I mean, I'm just looking now. He's only got 80,000 transfers in so far this week. I know it's not kicked off yet because we've had a bit of a break, but only 80,000 transfers in after 17-pointer. Gives me a little bit of hope, I suppose, but there's not been a huge amount of transfers with anyone by the looks of it, apart from João Pedro. So yeah, I mean, like, I just feel pretty good about that. Forest, don't know what to make with the new manager, but it's these away games, it's these sort of tricky-ish away games that I'm liking the look of. I mean, I liked the look of Sunderland away, low-key, before it happened. So, yeah. Lacroix's still got some making up to do after benching his 11 points. Like the defence. Enzo. I mean, by the way, just with Enzo, like, yeah. He's going to be a difficult decision because I kind of, it's obviously difficult when Arsenal is the game after this that's truly terrible, obviously, and there are lots of midfielders to get. But I do think he's such a good pick, Enzo, and obviously he's got Everton. I quite like Everton in 31. But I mean, the quotes you see Enzo talking about he's been saying how he's been like studying Frank Lampard, and that just models his game on wanting to be this goal scorer that just, comes in his time into the box. And he's been talking so much about how fit you've got to be in the Premier League and how you've got to be ready for a game every 3 days and how and why he's fitter than everyone else and all the things that he says and obviously what you see in what he does and his numbers. I mean, I think he's second in the league for non-pen XGI for the season and he's just, by some way, I think. So we'll see on Enzo, but I think he's really, really good. I think he's really, really good pick. But yeah, I mean, what do you think is pretty obvious? If Haaland's okay, I'm just on a roll. I've only got one transfer, so
there's really no justifying doing anything there because, okay, like I know that people are talking up these kind of low to mid-price midfielders, but unless you need it for an enabler, you still probably don't do it. And it's not obvious who that would be. So why would you give up? Yeah, well, there's just no one to give up this week if you're in that scenario. If you're not trying to enable, like let's say for the sake of argument, you had Calvert-Lewin and you wanted to make him up to Thiago, taking Rice down to whoever it would be, Dango, whatever. I guess it's justifiable. But in your situation, and also your bench is pretty deep, isn't it? Other than obviously the dud striker, which I'm assuming you might do something about at some point anyway. So yeah, there's really nothing that can be done. I'm kind of interested to see what you do with some of these picks over the next few weeks, because I suppose Everton you can kind of jettison, but they do have one lovely fixture left, and they have Burnley at home in a couple of weeks, which is a tricky one. Hall, okay, not great immediately, but then he has a lovely game in the blank. There's not lovely, but he has Sunderland at home, which is, if you're bringing in a defender in 31, by the way, he's more or less the top, isn't he? I would have thought. It's quite hard to, like, whoever you have, you play probably that week.
Exactly.
Really, even bringing in Van Dijk that week doesn't feel great. Like, Brighton away is not a game you bring him in for. It's one you play him for.
No, exactly. You're right. It's Anderson at home to Burnley is the only one who'd say.
Oh yeah.
He's the only one, because you're exactly right. You're exactly right in what you're saying. Sunderland away, Derby. Sunderland haven't been great away. It's a Derby. Hall has been sensational. I think he's just got a rest last game. So I absolutely want to leave him there and hopefully play him in 31, because, as you say, there's no good defenders really. There's no great defenders at all. Nice, and it's all about differential. It's what I meant about opportunity. So having Hall there, and I don't need to sell him, and I get to have him in 31, which on paper is great, and nobody owns him. Fantastic. And Jai and Tarkowski, loads of people selling Tarkowski. Hardly anyone owns Jai. I'm touch wood, as long as nothing happens. I'm 100% keeping them both for Burnley at home, because nobody's going to have them. Burnley at home. Whether they both blank or not, on paper it's a fantastic fixture. So I've got to eat that up. I've got all these opportunities I'm talking about that are great fixtures, great players. There's no ownership there. You love it. It's so much opportunity. So, yeah, 100% exactly what you just said. Those three guys will stay. Rice is the one who's on the chopping board, and obviously that means Enzo has to be as well, unfortunately, because of the fixtures. But I need to look at what that looks like in terms of where I go. But what you said is exactly right, because there's loads of people who are going to, for example, sell Rice or make this one move because they're going to be sure that they know what they're going to move next and how much money they've got in the bank. And I think that's really dangerous, because I think this is a real sort of crossroads, and there's so much information to be gleaned that it makes 2 transfers over 1 way more powerful, because so many of these potential moves as well are double moves and involve things like potentially captaincy and involve 31. And I don't really like this position. I get this sort of situation a lot where I'm in a week here where I love it because I've got nothing to think about, because on paper I'm definitely rolling and I'm chilling, and I get to do my favorite thing, which is roll transfer. But at this point in time, I've got absolutely no idea where I'm going to land next week in terms of, like, is it Dango? Is it Sharda? Is it Salah? Is it Ekatike? Is it Wirtz? Is it, what happens with the Brentford defence as well? What does that look like? Does Collins come back in? If he does, that looks like he probably stays in. If they have 2 at the back, I don't know if they have 4 at the back, because on paper, Brentford defence is amazing. Someone like Hill, for Bournemouth, what does that look like? You know what I mean? I have to go on and on. So to me, it is absolutely essential to have 2 transfers next week. Because again, not only do we learn all that stuff, but you never know what happens. And if Haaland does have niggles, what if he gets injured? What if you thought you were going to do certain transfers, you sold Rice, and Haaland does get injured, and then the whole thing changes because you can sell him and you're going to change your structure. So, yeah.
Well, I didn't want to hear any of that, but I'll read out my team. It's a bit of a different situation. So I didn't realize how it's weird how we've become quite different teams here. I mean, I haven't, obviously, because of the bad week, I hate it at the moment, but obviously broadly it's fine. But anyway, we'll come to that.
That is mad though. We're talking about Gabriel, Bruno, and Bumo. That's it. Oh, and Rice. So 4 players the same. And Haaland, sorry, Haaland. So
don't forget Gui. Yeah. Okay, cool. So team 2 free transfers and 1.7, I think, in the bank. So Mad Bob Sanchez and the goal, Timber, Gabriel, Munoz, Anderson, who probably won't play in any situation, to be honest, but he's there. Bruno, Mbuemo, Wilson, Rice, Ekatike, and Haaland, captain. Bench, Dubravka, Adarete, Anderson, and Gui. So, I mean, yeah, it's a horror. This looked an awful lot easier before the Munoz debacle last week. It became increasingly convinced that Keane was in trouble last week, because he does sometimes have a an issue playing 3 games a week anyway. They've got options there. I can see why they would have wanted to play Branthwaite against a more of a ball playing team, that sort of thing. So I didn't find out anything before deadline, but I just became increasingly convinced that there was a really quite a good chance. So I was delighted with that. And making a move last week with money in the bank, it seemed a stupid thing not to take the risk on a sort of 15-point ceiling for Munoz, even though someone like a Hill would have made all of my plans an awful lot easier. And of course that blew up. But what can you do? You can't realistically think that Hill's going to bag 9 points and Munoz is going to get 1 in that. There's no point racking that over now. So yeah, with this, I mean, obviously, you can probably imagine I want to have Thiago in my team, and I want to be in a position where because if I bring in someone like a Thiago, Anderson becomes really handy because he's someone who you can play or not play, but essentially he's there as your blank guy. He's there to pick up his 5 points against Tottenham in game week 31, or he can go for one of those lovely differential midfielders that won't become differentials by then, and we'll know whether they're any good and all that rest of it. So let's just ignore him for a minute. Sorry.
But, and it's worth saying, I completely agree, but as a non-owner, I really hope that the new manager changes their team and system so much that they become, possession based and all that sort of stuff, that he stops getting such incredibly reliable defcon. But
yeah, and maybe he will. But I think the thing is, right, is almost any plan I have now parks him on the bench for most of the remaining weeks. So he'll either become an interesting pick in 31 where he probably gets moved to someone else, or he's there to just make up the numbers, really. So he's kind of not a feature for the next few, because Forest have some pretty horrible, I don't know. I don't remember actually, but they don't have great games for the next few from memory. And to close your ears, Frenchie, but hopefully they get battered, because obviously that would do West Ham a tremendous service. Obviously, we'd rather Spurs go down, but anyway, let's park that for a minute. So yeah, Thiago would be the player I'd really like to bring in. The plan all along was to bring in Gui to Thiago, and then actually I probably could have had 2 going into 28, but it's not going to happen now. I either have to sort of accept my lot and park for more information later, or I probably have to ditch one of the Arsenal picks now in advance in order to get him in. So it's Haaland being out obviously changes everything. So there's no point us, I think, going through that scenario, is there?
Yeah,
if it
happens, it's going to be fine. He's probably not injured, is he? So let's hope.
Yeah. I don't think anyone really believes that, but obviously he goes to Thiago if that happens, and then midfield suddenly looks incredible and all the rest of it. But just out of interest, actually, quickly going back for a second, who is there a striker that you would bring in if he was? I'm trying to think. Would you just go Hugo or someone else?
I would imagine only Hugo. I can probably. I don't even know if I can actually. I'd have to think about it. Yeah, it'd probably be.
Don't know. Are there any others?
Hugo, because then could I go Rice or something to Salah the week after if I needed to? But
yeah, I mean, exactly.
I'm still not bought into Evan Nilsson. I've never really liked him as a pick. I know he's high on the model, so a lot of people will go there and they've got good fixtures, and it might be a bit of a blind spot by me. But I just never really liked Evan Nilsson as a pick.
I've never talked him up myself, so let's yeah, no, it never happened. Actually, do you remember at the start of the season I was pre-season, I was quite high on him, wasn't
I? Yeah, I thought you were joking then. Last season, you remember you loved him last season. There was a point last season. There was a point last season when you loved him. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just thinking. If and when he becomes a pick, we'll have to get Praz on, because yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. By the way, can I just say we've got to 1 hour 43 minutes or whatever, and I haven't done a like and subscribe.
No, we're terrible, aren't we?
It's absolutely dreadful. So if you're watching this back, you are doubly. We doubly need you to go back, hit buttons, share it. Just forget Pancake Day or Valentine's Day or any of these other things going on round about now. This is the priority. Make sure you do what you need to do to like and subscribe. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. Long story short, basically, what I would have to do if I am that hard, sorry,
click that
high on Thiago, whatever, doesn't matter. Same thing, really. Is that I would have to make that sacrifice. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to bring Timber down to like there's a number of things you could do there. Bournemouth defender. As you say, if you knew about Brentford, maybe you could. But and part of the reason that's sort of appealing about that is I do feel that broadly the defenders are all quite playable this week anyway. So there is a little bit of a reason for that. If you did that downgrade and go Gui to Thiago, Anderson's obviously bench, but then you have the money in the bank for Rice to Wirtz or anyone else. So that's reasonably appealing. Would I prefer to have that decision next week? Yes. So there is that. And the other thing that a lot of people I would have thought would do in this sort of situation is consider that Rice to cheaper mid Gui up scenario. I still see some people selling Ekitike for Thiago, which is I don't know. I can't quite get on board with that one, although it would make life somewhat easier. But yeah,
it's so weird. Ekitike is like a non-owner because like I'm just like
such a strange one.
It's a strange one. You almost don't want to watch him because you're so terrified. But like, and I daren't say this because I don't want it to change. But kind of apart from that 1 week, the two best players really to have not owned have really been Ekitike and Timber. And I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure how much of that is a function of them just not being quite as good at doing what they could do. Not should, because Ekitike should score goals, but not necessarily Timber. And how much of it is just bad luck. I mean, Ekitike definitely could have had more. I mean, his headed chances. I just don't think he heads the ball. I don't think he can head the ball. In terms of that miss. I just
thinking the same. Yeah.
He just he closed his eyes, hoped he didn't get hurt, and hit it with like hit it with the back of his head. I mean, he's 50p head, so I don't think he can score headers. But yeah, so those two have been kind of fun. I mean, that Spurs game with Arsenal is obviously very difficult to read because I don't know anything about this manager other than apparently he does very well when he goes in immediately. But how many times has he done that? And obviously this is the Premier League. I mean, what do you read into it? But there will be a new manager bounce. I mean, Spurs, God, weird team. I don't even know if I want to open up that discussion thinking about those players and Frank being sacked. But yeah, there's I don't know what that looks like. It's very hard to read that game because you would expect, really, if it wasn't that this manager can kind of work miracles, you'd expect that to be a very tight game and a very good chance of a clean sheet for Arsenal is how you view it, don't you? You have to, really. Mm-hmm. But it is a new manager bounce. I'm not sure what those players can do with the new manager bounce. It's only really like sort of Solanke. And I know Xavi's looked very, very good in the odd game recently, but that feels like a low-scoring affair, really. So it's never going to be. It's never an easy or right time to sell an Arsenal player, is it? I mean, Rice does look. I have to say, because I know I bigged him up quite a lot last week, and I do really like him, but I do think he looks. I don't think it's quite the same as it was earlier in the season in terms of Rice, because like Arsenal are chopping and changing so much. They've got various injuries up front with players, and it's not quite as set a role for him that he's been doing. And I just think as well a little bit. There's definitely a bit of teams catching up to Arsenal's sort of set piece threat and stuff. I mean, we saw it with Brentford, didn't we? They were just doing them in on the set pieces, and so I don't think it's quite as a straightforward system for the first 4 months. Arsenal were just in terms of set pieces, especially on a different plane, and they're almost laughing. They're all going back in the changing room like, well, they don't even know what they don't even know what we're doing here. It must have been so easy for them. So I think that's changed a bit now, which obviously affects Rice. So yeah, I mean, you are in a tough situation because I can see it. But I think both routes are fine. Like rolling and for a bit of information is definitely fine because your team is good. It's fine. And but obviously, I know you. I know what you're like, and I know how you feel about Thiago, and I know you're not going to like that option because you just want him in. You just want to go to bed at night and just talk to your wife and not just be in the fetal position, like sweating, like and I know what you like. You want to just forget about it, don't you? You want to go to the theatre, enjoy the theatre, and
I do, yeah. When I can afford it these days, yeah.
And you don't want to be thinking about Thiago. and podding with me after he braces this weekend.
I will say this isn't just me trying to convince myself or anything at all, because obviously as long as he's there, I'm always happy to have him because he's a good pick, still. But since I've had Timber, by the way, do you know how many? I mean, I've owned him for most of this season now. Do you know what the most I've ever got out of him is?
I mean, obviously, I want to say 6 because I'm trying to think when he last didn't get 6 or more. But no, I don't. Go on.
So, you're basically right. So I've got 1 9, okay. And then other than that, the most I've ever got is 6. And the reason I say this is because obviously you had him earlier in the season as well. I remember I brought him in after an 11-pointer against West Ham. I think he looked terrific in that game. That was the one where he kept going in advance of Saka. I think he won a penalty or something like that. He looked incredible. He like ridiculous numbers and that sort of thing. Obviously, there was that rogue double goal thing against Leeds earlier in the season as well. But if I'm honest, I found owning him to be a bit frustrating. I know that the amount of clean sheets, etc. So when he does go, I don't have the level of fear. Take for example, if I was in a situation where I was flush for transfers in game week 28, like a lot of people will do, they'll consider Van Dijk, as you say. I think I would do that move without too much trouble. I don't know when. I know that there's an argument that it's never a rush, but I'd be quite happy enough with it, regardless of what happens this week. So it is one of those. I don't know.
It's 31 helps a lot of people in those sort of things. Like it's always difficult. It's never easy to sell any Arsenal player because they're incredible. Never mind defender, never mind Timber with his numbers. It's a nightmare to sell them. So something like 31 helps a lot because then you can sort of just justify it and think, well, you get the extra games.
To cut a long story short, anyway, I know we can't talk about my team all evening, but I think the reason why I think it will be difficult to do the Rice downgrade to get Thiago in simply because there's not going to be any assurances by this game week of whether Dango or what have you is going to be a sure thing. I think that's the problem. I know that lots of people will do it, as you say, and it'll probably work out. And I quite like it. But knowing where to go, and also it blocks off a player that I've really wanted for some time for this run, which is Wirtz. So I think at this point in time, I'm either going to hide in a bush, maybe, or a cave, or undercovers. I'm not sure yet. So those are some options, or I will have to sell Timber.
Yeah,
because at least I know there are good, reasonably priced defenders. I can still move Munoz up to Gabriel, to Van Dijk later if I want him, and then I get my Thiago love, right? So I think you can justify it, but it's it never feels good, as you say. It's just whether Thiago makes me feel calmer than losing the Arsenal guy. I don't know what the answer to that is. Oh, if I could have gone back to last week and not bought Munoz, if I'm honest, I know that sounds bad, but
well, it's easy to say now. They played Burnley. You got over 1 XG. I mean, sometimes you just got you put yourself in a position to get lucky, and you just got unlucky. It's just one of them. You got to deal with it, but he's still got good fixtures, still great picks. So I don't think there's anything wrong with going for that. Definitely not. But I know what you're saying. But yeah, just quickly. I mean, I've got to say quickly, it's been frustrating as a Timber owner. It's also been quite frustrating as a Raya owner, and I know it's different, but it's quite an interesting. We won't go into it now, but I don't know what they need to do with keepers, but it needs some kind of a slight tweak because it's very hard to ever justify these expensive goalkeepers. And one thing I'll say about Raya recently is a number of games where they've got a clean sheet has been down to Raya, where he's made absolutely world-class saves, and the number of times recently where he's been on 2 saves, and I know it's about getting save points and so on, but it's difficult to sort of, because because you've got to have more of a way of justifying these expensive keepers, really. I mean, because you're rarely going to get these sort of seasons when you've got a team like Arsenal get as many clean sheets as this, so that you're going to get an expensive keeper who gets this many clean sheets, and he's still not as good as some of the cheapos. So something needs a bit of a tweak, because there's no reward there for Raya, where he's been making some unbelievable saves, and he's just such an unbelievable keeper. And of course, yeah, it's just 6. There's no reward for it. I just say as well quickly, which we haven't talked about at all, but I think it is really, I'll just mention it now, because I guess we won't have another chance to mention it. But thinking about Liverpool this week and thinking about captaincy and stuff is obviously the European games, and Palace is why I was thinking, that just triggered it then, because, in terms of captaincy, Newcastle, is it Karabag they've got to go to? Something like that. Got to go a long way.
Yeah, which is in, oh God, remind me, is it Azerbaijan?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember. I was just thinking the same thing. So I was thinking about.
I should know this as a former, as a Soviet space type. Azerbaijan, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Newcastle have got to go there. They've got that sandwiched. Forest, I've got to go to Europe, playing in Europe as well, aren't they? So they're playing Thursday night. I mean, that's pretty significant in terms of Liverpool players as well. Liverpool. I mean, Palace are playing in Europe as well, and that was obviously that was another little element of me not going Salah. Was like, right, can I get through Burnley, because I don't really like the Wolves being sandwiched in Europe, between Europe. But yeah, it's worth mentioning, so if Haaland is fit, which we expect him to, I think that is quite significant in terms of Newcastle having a lot of injuries and having Europe and City not. But yeah. Definitely looks good for Liverpool on paper.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we can move on from that. Or you can place your bets to see where I'll end up. I didn't. By the way, it's quite interesting. I was just checking it. A lot of defender predicted points this week. Admittedly, obviously, you can read that with a pinch of salt, but it's surprising some of the ones that come up. It's surprising the ones that come up with similar kind of scoring this week, because obviously a lot of people have players like an Anderson, Alderete, Mukiele, and Arsenal defenders or what have you. That predicted points wise, they're all very, very similar. So it's worth noting, because I think people are going to have a few bench dilemmas. I mean, I'm looking at that now and being like, let's say you bought in a Bournemouth defender, for example, to get a sort of cheap defender with good fixtures the whole way through. They're not necessarily going to get more points this week than a Sunderland defender anyway. So anyway, but that's another conversation for another day, but something to think about. But I think that's probably just because I really do like Viz. So cutting off the route there would hurt me. So I think it's role versus that, I would say. Anyway, let's get rid of that off the screen. Any last thoughts? I suppose we can do our thing. We can wrap up just before the we love that. We're good at that now. We're not good at anything to bring it before.
Finish before 2 hours, but we don't tell anyone to like or subscribe, and we don't.
Do that though. It really is your job to do that. Go away and do that. Like and do that. Do that. Yeah. That would be nice. But yeah, no, it's been nice to entertain you again, so to speak. Hopefully we did. And hopefully all your triple captains work. That's all I can say. But yeah, when is it actually, just before we go, is it a Friday deadline or
a good question.
It felt instinctively like it might be another one.
Isn't it like there's not a game till 3 o'clock, I think. Isn't that right? On Saturday.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So actually, oh no, that's not helpful. I was going to say City is an evening kickoff. Oh, Saturday night kickoff.
I know, and I'm out that night as well. I'm out for like a do for something, and I'm going to be, you know what I mean? I'm going to be, at least it's only City, so hopefully Haaland's all right, but never ideal.
Yeah, you can't. A Saturday night, he's going to get loads of goals in that. Saturday night,
I do like that. Yeah, true. Sorry, I was just looking at the chat and somebody called Brian I just messaged Steamy, which is presumably to you, but it sounds like something that you would say. Steamy Brian.
Steamy Brian. Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah. I know. Well, fair enough. No, but yeah, as you say, if Newcastle were coming back from downtown Baku, then that's a pretty long journey. Great. Okay. Well, we'll love you and leave you, and thank you for joining us again. And good night from me.
Cheers. See you later.